Hello everybody, I'm Joshua Pays, CEO of Pays' Car Reviews, and welcome back to My Thoughts, a series where I give you a brief overview, history, and essentially my thoughts on cars requested by viewers like you. So today's car is one with tons of history, great performance, and surprisingly gives you quite a lot for the money, and that is the new Chevrolet Corvette. This is the 8th generation Chevy Corvette, hence the name C8, and it's been met with largely mixed reception and has really been one of the most polarizing cars of this year. That being said, it has been one of the hottest cars of the year, winning the Motor Trend Car of the Year award for 2020. Clearly, there is more that meets the eye if such a successful car has come under such great scrutiny, and to understand that, I need to take you back to 1953. The prestigious and long-lasting Corvette moniker came from very humble beginnings. In 1953, General Motors revealed a two-seat roadster with fiberglass body panels that was more sedan than sports car. Success for the Corvette was very limited, with General Motors selling only 183 of 300 that were made. They really failed to appeal to a specific target demographic, as the vehicle was neither civilized to be a classy grand tourer, but wasn't engaging enough to be a sporty performance car. However, 1956 to 57 saw General Motors transform the Corvette with a newly revised front end that was inspired by the hugely famous Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Gullwing, in my opinion one of the best looking cars of all time. More importantly, General Motors made the switch from an inline-6 to a V8 engine, which was huge and took the car from having 115 horsepower to 225, almost double. That was kept consistent as the Corvette V8 has become a staple in all the C1's predecessors. There was also a power-operated folding roof, a much better chassis, and naturally better performance numbers, which really showed General Motors' willingness to evolve and develop, something that they have not at all been able to replicate in recent time.
General Motors is clueless. They're totally incapable of understanding what is happening here. It is depressing, it is terrible, and General Motors has no clue. Their recent strategy is absolutely hopeless in the face of so many other rival brands who have done it right.
Anyway, getting back to the C1 Corvette, it is generally regarded as one of the most beautiful models in the Corvette lineage and is widely celebrated by Corvette enthusiasts and purists. Now, the C1 Corvette is my personal favorite of the 8 because of its history, wonderfully classic styling, and simply put, its charm.
They call her Corvette, and she belongs to the highway just for the sheer and simple joy of driving, for the open road and the country byway, for Mr. and Mrs. America in a carefree mood.
Her name is Corvette and she belongs to the highway. Quite clearly, this was a car for enthusiasts, made for enthusiasts, for the simple pleasure of driving. And I think in the midst of horsepower wars and outlandish overstyling, I feel it's important to sit back and acknowledge what I personally believe is the most important aspect of a car like this, and that's the driving experience. Cars are meant for driving, not just sitting in some billionaire's garage collecting dust. And it's a real shame that some of these vintage, expensive Corvettes find themselves destined for the humdrum of that dreary fate. Now, I don't want to go through every generation of the Corvette because there are 8, and if I did that, then the video would ultimately be 45 minutes long. I just wanted to talk about the first generation because that's what started it all, and I really wanted to just give you guys a brief overview of the Corvette's rich history. Over the years, however, the changes have been very noticeable with all the models after the C1, particularly in performance and power, but also with styling, tech, and features. Now, despite the obvious progression, the Corvette has evolved around a relatively similar principle and concept. However, that all changes with the C8 Corvette, the newest model and the source of great scrutiny throughout the Chevy community, and hearing the arguments really goes to show you how resistant people are to change and how adamant they are to find something wrong with anything remotely new. Now, a few of these arguments are quite sound actually, and I do agree with a select few. The biggest of these being Chevy's omission of a manual transmission. The C8 Corvette only offers a dual-clutch automatic, which is quite good, but many enthusiasts and Corvette purists miss the raw control that comes with a manual. The other sound arguments that people were having were they insisted the brake calipers were too small, the interior layout with the center console dominating takes up too much space, and that the high-end spoiler is frankly ugly. Now, these are all fair game, honestly, and I do agree with them to a certain extent, and there really isn't anything wrong with these complaints. Like I said, they're quite sound. But the next few complaints, boy oh boy, are completely exaggerated and really showcase the obstinate adversity to change from Corvette purists. I mean, the meltdowns, people crying over this new Corvette is unbelievable. You'd think it kidnapped their children, murdered their wife, and ran over their dog, but alas.
We're living in a society.
So, the biggest complaint with the C8 Corvette that has been blown completely out of proportion is its design, specifically its engine placement. Now, in previous Corvettes, the engine has been placed in the front, what we call front engine, and it was a real staple for this lineage with all Corvette models before the C8 having front engines. However, the C8 has changed that completely, adopting a mid-engine placement where the engine is located in the middle of the car. Now, this was done for a number of reasons, namely better performance, because mid-engine helps greatly with weight distribution and acceleration. So instead of the push-back cabin and wide front hood we've become accustomed to with the Corvette, we instead have a very exotic and distinct look, which Corvette enthusiasts have really been vocal in criticizing. Now, that was definitely the biggest change and largest complaint of the C8, because admittedly, moving from a history of front engines to a mid-engine is a huge change. However, these same Corvette enthusiasts who claim to have such a holistic understanding of Corvette history and design don't realize the key body lines and design elements that remain consistent with the C8 Corvette. I mean, they're just so quick to say that the C8 isn't a real Corvette, when in actuality it shares so many features, design choices, and stances stylistically that are in line with the rest of the lineage. Now, I'm not the CEO of car design, but Bladed Angel is, so I'll let him explain.
Every Corvette has this stance from the C2 onwards. And better look, watch. Again, stance like a ramp. And then here's a side-by-side of both the cars. Stance like a ramp, stance like a ramp. The Corvette is just always ramp shape. Another cool thing about the Corvette through the years is take a look at this line. It's basically uninterrupted if you don't count the fender, so these wells obviously interrupt it. And the C7 also has one that starts from here. Now this line is signature Corvette. Not a single one of you European fanboys do not try to say you guys own this line. This is something us some proud Americans have been doing on our Corvettes literally since the C2 generation, all the way back when.
But the stupidity continues with purists claiming the C8 has Camaro headlights. I'll just let Bladed deal with this.
Now let's look at an actual Camaro. Would you look at that? Camaros have what I call a rounded hexagon. You can see that there are 6 main turning points, but they're rounded off. And this is not going to do it justice because my brush is too thick, but you see what I mean. 1, 2, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, rounded hexagon. Rounded hexagon. So it curves inwards to match these curving inwards, so we'll draw that out. Which again is something the Camaro didn't have, because the Camaro would have done this. We'll just draw a hexagon for now. That's what the Camaros looks like. This one is curving inwards.
And the last ludicrous design element that people seem to absolutely hate is allegedly the C8 is a carbon copy of literally any Ferrari. Now, people don't seem to understand how different the C8's design is compared to a Ferrari.
The Corvette has sides you can actually count. It's angular. Look at this gentle curve to this gentle curve to this roof line's gentle curve to this gentle curve. Wow. And then look at its rear. Curvy. Wow. Wow, guys.
So in short, the C8 is angular and the Ferrari is curvy. Anyway, with those opinions out of the way, it's time for me to give my opinion. Now, I'm going to start with the styling, which has easily been the most controversial aspect of the C8 Corvette. I absolutely love how it looks. This is far from anything I'd expect from General Motors, a company that have been releasing disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. The C8 Corvette looks like a direct competitor to top exotic brands like Lamborghini, Ferrari, Porsche, McLaren, so much so that it's absolutely unbelievable that this is a Chevrolet product. We're talking about the same company that gave us this and this, and even this. Next thing I have to praise are the performance numbers. A base model C8 comes with an all-new 6.2-liter LT2 naturally aspirated V8 that produces an astonishing 495 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque, which means it'll send the car from 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds. To put that into context, the Ferrari F8 Tributo, which I've done a review on, if you want to check it out on my website, link in description, the Ferrari F8 Tributo does 0 to 60 in the same amount of time, but costs 5 times more than the C8 Corvette. And that brings me to my final point, which really is the C8's strongest point, and that's value. The C8 Corvette starts at the shockingly reasonable price of around $70,000 Canadian. Never before has a car been this cheap, but has offered what is essentially supercar performance, exotic car styling, and truly a beautiful and luxurious interior which suits the price point. Now, $70,000 seems like quite a lot, but truly every penny you spend on a C8 Corvette is worth it. For a car like this, it's an absolute bargain, particularly when you consider rivals that offer essentially the same specifications, styling, performance, and driving experience for a far higher price. Let me give you some examples. So, all of these are in Canadian dollars. The Jaguar F-Type, $73,000. Lexus LC500, $103,000. Mercedes-Benz AMG GT, $118,000. Nissan GTR, $130,000. Porsche 911 Carrera, $116,000. Audi R8, $188,000. Acura NSX, $157,000. And if you're really looking high-end like a Ferrari or Lamborghini, good luck finding anything less than $300,000. The point is, all these cars I just mentioned offer extremely similar performance numbers for far more money. Never before has any manufacturer made a car this exhilarating and desirable for only $70,000. With many other supercars, an experience like this will easily cost you over $100,000, but not with the C8 Corvette. Combine that with its incredible daily driving capabilities and extremely good reliability, and it's clear to see that the C8 Corvette beats all of its rivals in terms of value. So the question remains, how many pace points does the C8 Corvette get? Well, it gets an absolutely incredible but well-deserved 95 out of 100, the highest number of pace points I've ever given so far, and for right reason. This car does something unique, which is providing the supercar experience for less than the price of a well-equipped Audi Q7. To put that into context, you can buy 3 C8 Corvettes for the price of 1 Lamborghini Huracan. When the other guy is offering better performance, better reliability, and a better driving experience for a fraction of the price, that makes you look like a complete barnacle head now, does it?
Oh, look at him choke! Oh, look at him suffer!